All right, we're ready to go with the next section of chapter 3, and you'll notice we're zooming right along going through here. So the first heading, or what I want you to put up here, is 3-3, interpreting graphs and tables. Okay, that should be at the top of your notes. And then your learning target for today is kind of wordy, so feel free to pause the video if you need to while we're going through this. Okay, so it's kind of twofold. One is that you're going to be able to interpret information from a graph or a table. Okay, so we're just going to get the data and you're going to be able to look at it and kind of tell a story. And the second thing, then kind of going vice versa, is you'll be able to make a graph given some information and then use that to solve problems or interpret what's going on. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to do. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff on this screen, so stop freaking out. Here's what I want you to write down. This top part, the heading, which I'll get this silly thing out of the way. So where it says matching situations to tables. So put that up at the top, okay? And the only other thing I want you to write down is right here for car 1, car 2, and car 3, okay? Car 1, car 2, car 3. Now, this table, believe it or not, looks like a bunch of mumbled jumbled numbers, but it's really telling us a story. It says it gives us the speeds in miles per hour of 3 different cars over a certain series of time. So let's take a look. Car number 1's story. As time progresses, it's traveling at 50 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour. Then, all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, it's 30 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, and then 0. It means it stopped. All right, let's look at car number 2's story. Car number 2 is going 55 miles an hour, then 50, 50, 55, then 50. Okay? And then finally, car number 3, traveling 55 miles per hour, then only going 10 miles per hour. Then we're stopped, not moving at all. And then all of a sudden, now we're back at 55 miles per hour. So our job that we're going to do today is kind of take a look at some situations and see which one matches. So you're interpreting to see what's happening. So here's Mr. Lee. And Mr. Lee happens to be traveling on the highway. And then he's being very smart. Not like most of the drivers I see. He actually pulls off of the highway, pulls over, and then makes the call on his cell phone. Then he gets back on the highway. Smart man. All right, now which one of these cars fits this situation? So he's traveling, he pulls off, stops, makes the phone call, and then resumes traveling again. So as you look through each of these 3, which one works? And you should pick, ding, ding, ding. Looks like car number 3. We're traveling, we slow down, stop. That's when he's making the phone call, and then he's traveling again. Car number 3. All right, so you can just put on your notes here that this one is Mr. Lee. Okay, and right here, this is where he's making a phone call. All right, that makes sense. All right, next on this one, what's happening here? Well, this time we have Mrs. Healy, and she happens to be driving on the freeway between 1 o'clock and 1:20, and nice, she encounters absolutely no traffic. So she gets on the highway, just cruising right along. Which one of these situations fits that? Well, as you look through it and interpret it, you're looking along. There's no stops or anything on here. So Mrs. Healy is car number 2. Okay, so this was Mrs. Healy. This was Mr. Lee. Now that leaves us with car number 1. We haven't used that one yet. So what's car number 1's story? Could you think of what's happening as we're traveling along at 50 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, then 30, and then dead stop? What could be going on there? Well, here's one possibility. Car number 1 starts out on the freeway or on the highway, and traffic starts getting more congested, okay? Lots more traffic. Can't go as quickly. And finally, there's a big old traffic jam and we have to slow down and stop. Complete stop. That's what happened there. One possible answer. Okay, so you see how this isn't really, cranking out numbers doing computation. What we're actually doing here is trying to figure out kind of a story or a situation that matches the information that you're given. Okay, so that was matching situations back here to a table. Okay, matching a situation to a table. Let's take a look at what happens when we're trying to match a situation to a graph. All right, so here's a graph. Okay, and it says which car in example 1 corresponds to this one. So if you take a look at the graph and notice I have speed here on my vertical axis. Down here for time, I don't really have specific time intervals, but I can kind of see what's happening here. I'm starting out and I'm somewhere between 50 and 60. Frankly, it looks pretty close at 55. Okay. Then looks like I start to decrease, and for here I'm going steady at about 50 for a while. Then I creep back up here a little later on to 55 again, and then I'm at 50. All right, so as you look at that picture, which one matches this particular, or I should say, which car matches this one? And I'm going to zoom this up here now so you can see what's going on. Car 1, car 2, or car 3? This one looks like, whoops, let me get this back on here matched up. This one looks like it matches up with car number 2. Okay, so this graph matches car number 2. All right, let's look at another one. What's happening here? So I was at 55, and all of a sudden, I have this dramatic slowdown at 10. Then here, I've stopped for a while, and then I zoom back up to my regular speed. Now, you can write numbers in there that make it fit, or you can just kind of play it by ear and say, well, which situation is this one? Well, here I'll pull our former table up here to see which car is matching this situation. I'll throw it right there in the middle. This one starts at about 55. Yep. Slows down to 10 and then nothing. Here you go. It's car number 3. Okay, see how the data paints a picture in a graph this way. Cool. Here's another situation. Look at this one. I have 3 different graphs here, and it says, can you match the situation to the graph? So Jamie starts a race, okay? Soon feels a pain in his muscle, like in his leg. Have you ever had that cramp up happen when you're running? So he's unable to complete the race. He actually has to slow down and stop, and he's done. He's not going on. Which one of these, comparing the speed to elapsed time, matches Jamie's situation? Is it graph number 1, graph number 2, graph number 3? Pause the video. You make your guess. All right, did you make your guess? You should have chosen graph number 2. Let's look at it again. This time, same 3 graphs. This time we have Melissa, and Melissa builds up her speed during the beginning of the race. Okay, then she maintains that speed for the whole rest of the race. So she starts off at a decent amount, and then she increases until she gets through the whole end of the race. Which situation is it? Is it graph number 1, graph number 2, or graph number 3? Pause the video, make your guess. Ding! We're back. And this one, graph number 1, should be the one you pick. Now, we didn't talk about graph number 3, but what could have happened there on graph number 3? You start out at a speed, then you're slowing way down, then you go back up, and then you slow down, then you come up. I would say that would be a good situation or example of somebody doing some interval training. Maybe you're starting out fast, and then you kind of slow down to a slower pace, and then build back up, faster, 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 slow down, and go back up. Just one example. All right. Last but not least, we need to create a graph that will match the table. All right, so let's take a look at this. It says create a graph that illustrates the information on this table about the distance traveled during a family vacation. So here's the table. What I want you to do is draw two axes here, a horizontal and a vertical one, and we need to label these. Time, I'm going to put on the horizontal, and then distance in miles is how we're going to label the vertical one. All right, now the time elapses from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So I'm not going to start directly at 0, but these are equally spaced intervals. It goes 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. So let's make a hash mark. Call this 8 o'clock. Come down here, call this 10 o'clock. Let's call this noon or 12 o'clock. And then over here, 2 o'clock. All right, now the distance, this kind of thing, we have to get all the way up to 580. I do like to start this probably at about 0. So I know I have to get to at least 600, or 580. So I'm going to go up here to 600. Okay, and then about halfway, that would be 300. And then divide these up into thirds. So this would be 100, 200. Divide this chunk into thirds. 400, 500. Okay, here we go. Let's see. So at 8 o'clock, we've traveled 280 miles. That's going to be approximately right about there. Okay, at 10 o'clock, we've gone 320 miles. Probably right about there. At noon, we've traveled 500 miles. All right. And by 2 o'clock, we've gone 580, like this. So it looks like we go like this, like that, and like that. And there you go. Now let's see if that matches what we've got here. Yeah. See if yours matches mine, I should say. Okay. All right. Now there's two things I want you to do. First things first, don't turn off this video yet. What I want you to do is get out your workbook. Okay. In your workbook, I need you to open up to page 20. What I want you to do, opening up page 20, okay, is pause the video, go through these examples. Then you're going to turn on the video again, check your workbook page.